Well, hey everyone, we are back recording 6 Feet Under Exhumed. I am Kari the Mortician.
I'm Faith, that mortuary professor. This is episode 2 of season 3. It is called You Never Know. And it opens up with a guy making a or answering a phone call, and it's a telemarketer, which I feel like that's a sign of the times. I don't know that we have as many telemarketers, thank God, as we used to, if our cell phones just block them now. But so he's taking a telemarket call, but he hears in the background a lot of noise.
Mhm.
And what's happening is that a former employee has come into the telemarketing office. He's been fired, and he has a gun, and he is shooting down the manager, somebody else, a couple of targeted people, and then other people that are just kind of in the way. So it's a workplace shooting incident that this man is hearing over the phone, and the shooter and three other people, I believe, are killed.
And they do the switch and bait with us at the beginning, just like, oh, Nate's dead, Nate's not dead before, and they usually do at the beginning. The man is cooking and he turns on the stove and the pilot light doesn't light and the gas is on. So you think that this
Mm.
man is going to like blow up or something, but then it ends up being on the
Uh-huh.
telemarketer side that
Yeah,
something happens. And I am so excited to discuss this episode
me
because this is
too.
a topic I
This
have
is something that
discussed a
happened.
lot.
Yeah.
Is, shooter, the criminal kind of person,
Mhm.
and caring for them at a funeral home, and the way they play this out. It's, ooh, so excited to talk about this. So
I
yeah,
am
so
too.
they start with that, and
So
there's
basically, David and Rico are talking about them coming in, right? Do we want to start there? I'm sorry, I cut you off. Go
No, I was
ahead.
just going to say there's four actually deceased: Matthew,
Oh, is there?
Martin,
Okay.
Andrew, and Daniel. We really
Okay.
don't see all four of them. We really deal with two of them
Yeah.
that are being cared for at the
Fisher and
funeral
Season.
home.
Yeah.
And which I don't think we mentioned that last time that Rico's name is on the sign now.
Yes, so it's Fisher and Diaz. So Rico is an official partner. We didn't talk about it much in episode 1, but there were some scenes where he was kind of having to assert that no, I'm a partner, not an employee anymore, which is always a dynamic change. So that, I
Yeah.
mean, there's three people that work there. Somebody's got to do the work, you know? And he's kind of like, well, I'm not your employee anymore. Well, that's fine, but somebody's supposed to do this. And you know what I mean? It
Right.
doesn't, I think that's one of the things, especially in small funeral homes, that maybe people don't realize or forget is it's like you may co-own it with somebody else. That doesn't mean the rug doesn't have to be vacuumed.
Right.
You
It's
know,
still, you're still cleaning a toilet. You're
still
still
got to do it.
parking cars. You're
I go
still
to,
doing
yeah.
whatever.
When I go to the auto shop, I clean. I don't sit there and hold court as the owner. I like clean the toilets. So
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. But he's kind of got this attitude for a second. Well, I'm a partner now. This is beneath me. Sorry, it's still got to be done.
Well, and he ends up this is a side of Rico that kind of pisses me right off
He's got some ish. He's very much old-fashioned and very close-minded in a lot of ways.
a lot of ways. And he
Mhm.
ends up meeting with the wife of the victim. And he really does not want to serve them. He really wants to have them go somewhere else
The
because,
wife of the shooter,
oh, no,
right?
he meets with the victim's wife first, I believe, and then later with the shooter's wife, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think so. But I think the way you were saying it, it sounded like you were saying he wanted the victim's family to go away.
Oh,
But I,
sorry, no, the shooter's
okay.
family to
Yeah.
go away, because he was feeling so much for the victim's family, and then he's like, well, we can't have these other people here, and we shouldn't serve them. And they're like, no, we need to serve everybody, kind of thing,
Yeah.
because they, of course, are all about we need as many clients as we can.
Part
But
of it. I mean, it's a business, right?
yeah, so they kind of go through this back and forth, and um, I can't imagine being a funeral director meeting both sides.
I can't either. I've been in situations where we've had both the victim and the perpetrator at the same time. Um, but I have not had to meet with both families. So I can't imagine having to go from meeting with the victim's family to like the same day now you're meeting with the shooter's family. I think that would be difficult. But I also think that we have to remember that the families are not to blame for what their
They didn't do the
person did.
crime. No.
They didn't do it, and they've lost somebody, and they've lost them in a very public, very negative way, and that is something that we call disenfranchised grief.
Hmm.
And so what that is, we've talked about this in other situations on the show so far. What this is where we feel like a person's death shouldn't matter or shouldn't be brought attention to because of the way they died or that, and that their family isn't entitled to the same amount of support or whatever it is because of circumstances. And there's a million ways disenfranchised grief can appear that aren't
Right.
necessarily that, but that's just one of the ways where your child shoots the workplace up and kills people, and people treat you like you're the criminal because you're the parent, so you must have raised them wrong. That's not a thing. And you're almost feel shamed to the point where you don't even want to acknowledge the death, and so your grief goes not goes unacknowledged or unsupported by your community because of the nature of what happened.
Well, and yeah, I talk about this a lot because, you go back to like Columbine and the Boston bomber and funeral homes not wanting to serve them, or you not getting to grieve with people supporting you because you don't feel like you can have a funeral for your loved one. And, that morning when your kid left to school, they were still your kid and you were wishing them a good day and you didn't have a clue that was going on. I mean, we're now seeing that some parents are being held accountable for these crimes. And I think in some situations there is enough evidence that,
Sure,
yeah, those parents could have done something and could have
there
helped.
could be circumstances that support that, but in most cases, I just don't think pointing the fingers at the parents for what a near adult child or a fully adult child chooses to do um, is their fault.
Well, and yeah, in this situation, we've got like a 30-some-year-old man who has
Mhm.
gone to do this, and it's not a 14-year-old boy or a 16-year-old girl or something. It is a full-on adult, fully
Is living
capable.
in your home that you're observing, and even then, come on,
You're only going to see what someone lets you see. I
that's
mean,
right.
look at everybody who says, "Well, I didn't know that they were going to take their own lives." No, you're not going to see what people don't want you to see. And there's not always signs, there's not always writing on the wall, there's not always clues leading up to it. These can be very thought out things, but yet no one knows. And it makes it even sadder, I feel like, in so many ways.
It really does. And for the funeral directors, I think there are feelings of some kind of like if you're serving the victim's family and the shooter's family, there does feel like some kind of betrayal of the victim's family. Is the best way I can say it. Like you feel like you're doing something wrong by helping people associated with who hurt that other family.
Yeah,
But the truth of it is that you are there to serve anybody and again, you are a small business. You can refuse business as long as it's not a protected class.
right,
But that's a PR nightmare now. I don't know. And especially if you're in a small town, you're going to make them go 100 miles away?
right.
I mean, it's not a good look for you either
No,
way, really, to some people, but that's the nature of it. And what what all someone that was involved in a situation like this at a time before I was when I was younger, not had gone to mortuary school or anything yet, talks about how in a similar situation that they were in, they had to put the shooter's body next to the victim's body in the cooler overnight. That
and I
happens at
don't.
the coroner's office too, guys.
Yep, and I don't understand that. I just so my niece was killed by her dad, and then
Yeah,
he killed himself, and I was so thankful when I knew she wasn't at the medical examiner's office anymore, and
yeah,
was happy to know what funeral home he was at and that he was away from my niece. And when I'd called the medical examiner, because I kind of wanted to know her condition, because we didn't know. Of
sure, of
course,
course.
that's
Yeah.
as a funeral director, that's is their condition? Are we going to be able to see her? What is going to be, the situation? And
That's
I'm
a
like,
call you need to make on every coroner's case. That's absolutely.
if he rolls off the table and he falls on the floor, like it's okay, like by the way, kind of thing. But I can't imagine if he had been in the same funeral home as her. So I think that is a mind mess for a funeral director to lay
Absolutely.
there with both, having to care for both in one capacity. That's just wild to me to think about that scenario. So I cannot imagine how that had to have messed with Rico,
Sure.
treating the family the way he was, or
That was
begrudgingly
not.
treating them, not the best, but I can imagine kind of how that had to play with his mind.
Some
But
things you have to just leave for later.
mhm.
That's it. And that arrangement, let me tell you, I'm sure you do know this, but any kind of arrangement where somebody's been murdered or that is a different kind of arrangement.
Ooh, it
It's
is.
even more different when it's someone who the family who's, person is responsible for that. So you're already doing one of the hardest, there's no laughing. There's no,
You're all
it,
business.
you're all business. And now you have to be at even another level of that. And that is taxing on the funeral directors all the time. I mean, those arrangements are difficult for everybody. You're sitting there for hours with people who have I don't want to say they have no personality, but they don't a lot of times. They're just, and that's normal. But
Yeah.
then to add in that other capacity, it's even harder. So that's a hard day for any funeral director. But you got to be able to stay professional.
I
That's,
almost just said at the end of the day, I want to be able to go home and feel good about myself that I
yeah.
helped them. But I also have to understand there are funeral directors who would go home at night and not feel good about themselves helping that family. And that's their ethical standard for themselves. And that's fine. I don't feel like this is a right or wrong if you believe
Right.
strongly one way or another. Um, I just know that at the end of the day, if I did not serve a family, and you don't have to serve them in the same ways, but to do my job and do my baseline and get things done that need to get done for them, I can't imagine not doing that based off of XYZ. Like if they had hurt my own family or they had done something, but
Mhm.
I think it's Vernie Fountain or somebody at one of Vernie Fountain's. He's a restorative art funeral
Yeah.
director, like very prominent within death care. And it was at one of his things, I don't remember if it was him that said, like, everyone's a glimmer. Everyone's a glimmer in someone's eye, whether they are Charles Manson, like they were a glimmer in their parents' eye at one
Yeah,
point.
everybody's somebody's son or something like that, as he said.
Yeah. And so there's always somebody that loves somebody. And you have to kind of remember that as you're caring for people, whether you believe in who they were. And but what's sad is you extend that out to,
Well,
you know,
that's the part of it that's not okay. You don't have to
everything.
support, you're not supporting the actions of the individual who committed a crime when you are treating their family as another family that you're serving because, you know, I don't know about your family. There's plenty of people in my extended family. I would just be like, yep, they are absolutely they just got the every branch on the way down, whatever you want to say. There,
Yeah.
we have most families, if they're large families, especially, have a couple in there that you're like, oh, you just can't. And if
Yep.
I, so you know intrinsically that a family isn't responsible inherently for the actions of a member of the family, especially when they're an adult.
Yeah.
But it's really easy to judge people when they're in situations you're not because you think you could never be in that situation. And let me tell you, you're wrong. You do not, you never know. That's the title of the
Yep.
of the
You never
episode.
know.
So
Um, well, let's talk about some of the other characters now too. So we get
yeah.
Claire is back with crematory guy and is spending time with him and blowing off classes and oh, let's make plans and let's do
Well,
this.
Claire is doing the stereotypical thing of assuming because they've slept together one time or seen each other a couple times that they're somehow in some kind of exclusive or heading that way relationship. And I'm not saying that only women do that. They do not. But that's a common thing, right? Especially in young relationships. And
Yes.
this guy is pretty clear. I think they're talking about making plans, and he's like, "Well, I can see you next weekend." And she's like, "Well, do you mean not until next weekend?" And he's like, well, I have other plans. And she's like, well, what with other women? And he's like, yeah, some. And it like just, crushes her a little bit because her mind doesn't work like that. And a lot of people's don't work like that, and a lot of people's do. So that's a common thing, right?
And it's sad because she's like, oh, well, of course, but you can tell she's super hurt by it, and she just chooses the wrong guys every
Well,
time
she
lately.
does, and she's young. Again, what 21-year-old me would have tolerated versus what 40, almost 42-year-old me would tolerate is night and day. Um,
One of my favorite things about this episode is we have Kathy Bates, and she is just magic. So Ruth gets a call from her sister, who, we know is this hippie chick out in the woods. And she goes running because she's like, I need your help. I throw out my back or her hip or whatever she says she hurt. Can you pick up my prescription? I need it. So she picks up and she gets there, and out comes Kathy Bates, like a bear, and grabs it out of her hand. She's like, you will not. And she's like, what is going on? And come to find out that Kathy Bates is this housekeeper who is helping her sister detox.
well,
What
Kathy Bates is her friend, and she just happens to be cleaning the house, I think. I don't know that she's her house. Maybe she is. I don't really know.
I
You
feel like
might
she
know.
was a housekeeper or something, or she
Was
was.
she?
But she ends up being the one she's trying to detox her sister from,
Yeah.
is it Vicodin?
It's narcotics, yeah, pain
And
pills.
so she's into, this detox. And so through this course of the episode, we go through this detox with her where she goes through the sweat, she goes through the hallucinations, she's going through the begging, bartering, all of it. And Ruth is watching her do this, like, what is going, poor little naive Ruth. And
Yeah.
is like, what the fudge is going on here, guys? And Kathy Bates is like, she's fine. We're going to tie her to the bed. So they tie her
Yep.
to the bed at one point, and it's just bananas because she really just, here's what we're doing.
Yeah. It's probably not the best way. Should probably do that in a medical facility now. But again,
Yes.
these aren't maybe people that would do those kind of things, and they would try to be. It's interesting because her sister is like one of those super holistic people, but she's addicted to prescription medication, so it's kind of like you don't know. But yeah, it's a very homemade detox and withdrawal supervision for sure.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean it's entertaining for sure because the sister's saying all these crazy things and being mean and Bettina, which is Kathy Bates' character, and Ruth get to a point where they're like they don't care anymore. Like whatever, say whatever. Yep, I'm a bitch. I'm this. Yep, you got it. I'm terrible.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ruth kind of gets the fire in her,
Yeah,
and
they
it's
just
kind
kind
of
of
fun to see.
it is, and they just kind of get to the point where like every insult that the sister hurls at them, they're like, okay, yep, got it. They don't even
Nope.
argue anymore, and
And I
so
love kind of talking out that whole storyline with it just because it's fun. And they tie her up kind of, and because she's going through the final kind of big there. And so they go outside and they get drunk and they get high and they're like swinging in the hammocks and doing their
she's
thing. And
just
she's
screaming.
screaming in the house. And she's like, Kathy Bates is basically like, it's fine. We got to let her just go through it. And she's safe. We're out
Yeah,
here and we're having fun. And they're just like, woo, living it up. It's kind of nice
yeah,
to see Ruth letting loose a little, but I think she
yeah.
loves seeing that her sister's not perfect
Yes.
in some
Abs.
ways. Because I think she always thought she was the fun one. She was the nice one. She's the one that my daughter loves and all this stuff. And
Uh-huh.
um it's kind of cool to see that closer. And Eddie is here again. He is like a beast when I am recording now. I don't know what I'm gonna do.
Just ignore him. It's okay. Nobody cares. Just
Yeah,
ignore him. It's fine.
the Ed. We go back to Keith and David a little, and Keith's doing some therapy, and um,
They're
they
at a dinner party with
they go
Nate
to
and
Nate's for
Lisa.
dinner, which is
Oh God, it's so awkward.
oh
Um, and
terrible.
then they have the baby monitor on the table so they can hear everything that's going on in the baby's room. And Keith has to go to the bathroom, and they tell him not to flush the toilet because it'll wake up the baby. That I have lived through. This I don't care if this is gross. For the solid like first 2 years of Helena's life, if you didn't poop and you just peed overnight, you did not flush that toilet because she would wake up. So whoever got up, whenever she got up, whoever had the first pee after that got to flush the whole night of, everybody lived in the house because we have one bathroom. But you get to a point where you are so desperate not for that baby to wake up that you will live, you will live like that. So that is very relatable to me. So she tells him, don't flush the toilet. And he goes up there, and of course you can hear what's going on in the room, and he's going to the bathroom, and then he flushes the toilet, and the baby starts crying. And so then Nate and Lisa, so Keith come back to the table, and Nate and Lisa go up to the baby's room, and now David and Keith are sitting at the table listening to Nate and Lisa over the baby monitor argue and then sing some weird little song, and they're kind of like, this is weird. Like,
Oh, weird. And it's funny because, again, it's kind of, I love how some of these episodes, they kind of mirror each other, where Ruth realized she's maybe more than normal and her sister's kind of crazy. And they are like, we're the ones in therapy, but who are these wackadoodles over here raising a kid?
it
And
was so like funny to me, and I don't know if it's just, I don't know why this was something that I don't think would ever happen in my life, but why did both of them need to go?
because it's Lisa and she's wackadoo. She's
Well,
crazy.
Lisa can go by herself. Nate can stay with his brother and have dinner, or Nate can go check on her. Like, what? You both got to go leave the table for 30 minutes because the
Sing the
baby's
song.
squawking?
Yeah.
No.
But they get, I think this is our first real big insight into how crazy and the snap that Lisa is. Like we've seen little bits and pieces, but we really get to see how cuckoo she is.
And how when she doesn't realize other people are listening,
It's
she's a
gonna
little bit
keep coming
more,
out bigger and crazier, I think.
yeah, she's a
So,
little bit more aggressive than she is, with other people. But they fight about gas drops, and they fight about how she's cleaning the baby's ears, and they fight about, I don't recall what else, something just very, very small things, which when you're exhausted and have a new baby, it's easy to do.
yes.
But in this case, it still feels like it's just incompatibility too of the two of them.
Well, and at one point he steps in to help and he washes laundry.
Yeah,
She flips the frack out because he used, did you smell it? What did you even use? This is
yeah,
not the
natural. It's not,
sensitive,
yeah, whatever.
hypoallergenic that our
Yeah.
child needs. And he's like, I'll rewash it. No, that's not what it is. Like she just goes for it. It's just all these little things that she gets super pissed, but she keeps it down enough that you don't realize how it like cuckoo she really is. And it's
Well,
like
and
it's
we
building.
don't, as we go on, I don't think it ever goes here, but there are people struggle with postpartum of all kinds, anxiety. Say, I had postpartum psychosis. I had hallucinations. It really, when you are not sleeping, when your body is recovering from, something like that, it takes a very long time to get
Yeah.
back to any kind of normalcy. I mean, I'm talking more like over a year or
Hmm.
more for many, many women, and men can have postpartum too, because although their body didn't necessarily go through, and their hormones do change when they become parents, but not anywhere near the degree of actually like having a baby does on breastfeeding or any of those things. But there's changes for the men too, some hormonally, mostly just socially.
Hmm.
Um, and so those things are very normal. It's very normal to sink into like hyper vigilance about things,
Yeah.
and and it's just, you can see that play out. So I do have empathy for her as someone that did go through a very, very dark time after having a baby, very. And but the way that they do it, I'm not sure how to explain it. Almost it makes it clear to you that it's not just that.
Mm-mm.
There's a true personality here, and
Aw.
yeah, and also just incompatibility in their, because Lisa comes off as when we first meet her, she's like this cool chick from Seattle. It's just in all these flowy clothes and smoking weed or whatever. So you think, oh, she's cool, anything. But then you see she's very hyper vigilant about a lot of things to the point of almost obsession,
Mm-hmm.
that you don't expect from someone that presents that way, the way
She
she does.
presents free, but she's super hyper controlling and dominant, and she's
Mhm.
very opposite from what she tries to present. With showing a lot more Lisa, we get to see more of Catherine O'Hara, and golly, is she good.
She's just
I
she's
just,
one of the best of our time, I think. I just love her. She's funny. She can do anything. She's become a character actress, I would say, which is fine. But God, she's just one of I think she's one of the best actresses of our lifetime, at least.
she is fabulous. Yes, I
And
love her. And
she's
I
just
forgot she was in the show. And
yeah.
what makes me so happy to get to see her.
Yeah, so they're at they're at dinner and there's no boundaries with this employer is what it is. So Lisa is her chef, that's all. She doesn't do anything else for her. It doesn't seem just that she is the chef. So why this woman would be barging into her, her time and in the nighttime and saying, "Oh, I had such this party was so bad. This person da 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 da. I need to and
I need
treat that
tea
person.
and I need biscuits or whatever
I need a
she's.
bath and I need toast and I'll tell you all about it." Like there's a real crossing of a professional boundary there with this employer, a little bit. But then she also like snaps at her if she shows any kind, like it's a weird expectation. The expectation is like the relationship is Lisa, you're my support person. You're there to do anything and everything I want. But if you need anything from me, it's out of line because I'm your employer. So it's really
Yeah,
weird.
it's really weird. Definitely. Um, we close out. I had this is the funeral director point I have to bring up with us. I mean, we have the funerals for and kind of go through caring for the victim and the shooter and stuff. I was more wrapped up, I think, in the family dynamics of everybody in this one than I like that was such a big part, but then also, these character big moments. And but this moment, Claire was running around picking up death certificates. Back in the day, we had to physically take a death certificate, go to a doctor's office, sit at the doctor's office and wait for the doctor to sign it or drop it off and come back a couple days later to get it signed. Everything was typed with a typewriter. And it really wasn't until maybe 10 years ago in Michigan, let's see, it was maybe 12 or so that we were on digital, and everyone's still even not digital. We have to do a lot
Yeah.
of faxing, a lot of handwritten signatures, and then scanning them in. We're working towards being all digital, but doctors are just not wanting to. And so, the thought of she's running around these death certificates, I was like, oh, yes, I remember
Oh,
the days.
absolutely. That was a huge time suck. And then you'd have to go to Vital Records with all the stuff you got. And then
And
you'd have
file
to,
it. And yes, it was a
Mhm.
process. It was a process. So when you go in to meet with the family right away and they go, do you have my death certificate? And you're like, I have to drive it to a doctor's office. I have
Well,
to
you
sit
have to get
there for two
information from
days.
the family before you can even start that.
Yeah. And
It's
it's
like,
it's not anyone's bad. It's just not knowing the process, but it is a process. So when you expect your death certificates in 5 minutes after the death, no. Like we
not
can
at all.
have 2 weeks sometimes, guys. Like
Yep.
long process to get there for sure.
Very long, especially if it's a coroner's case or if it's
Oh,
all
much
kinds
longer.
of
Yeah.
other things. And if you make one mistake, you have to start all over. Even with
Yeah.
electronic has made the that you have to like go physically drive somewhere gone, but that just sits in a queue until the doctor has time to look at it. And that's not a priority to a doctor. Their living patients are their
Nope.
priority. So they're not going to be like checking that. That's an afterthought where maybe if they have time at the end of the day, they'll look at that queue, but you
Yep.
still have to call and chase them over the
Yeah.
phone, but at least you don't have to sit in the office and get nasty looks by the receptionist for 4 hours.
I know a funeral director who used to drive the hearse and go park it right up by the front door in the parking spot
You know?
and wait until they signed it because there's some doctor's offices who push it off so hard and the families need these. The families, and there is by
Yeah.
law. By law, a doctor has to sign that within 48 hours of death.
In
By
some
law,
states. In other ways, it's
in
safe
some
to.
states.
But
And so,
I don't know why they have such a problem with it. Like, I know they're busy, but that is part of the job.
just sign it. Take some
Just
time.
do it.
Sign it, guys. It's
Yep.
okay.
And
Well,
I
this,
wonder if some
oh,
states
God.
in there, maybe you know this. I don't know the answer to this. I wonder if some states where the doctors can access it before, I mean, I know obviously medical examiners and all of that, but is it centralized in a way that a doctor could even go in and sign it and do the medical part before the family made arrangements and you had the vitals?
We can, in our state, hospice is on board with that. Every doctor could be on board doing that, but they're not. They're trying to enforce that you have to do it digitally, and that way there's a timestamp. So if they have not, if it's been sent to them within their system and within 48 hours they haven't sent it back, it
You're
sends
fine.
a notification to the monitor. They can then find them.
Yeah.
So they are saying this is a way we can, one, make money, and two, monitor how this system works and enforce it more. They're also, I think, working on not just doctors signing, because what a lot of people don't realize too, your nurse practitioner who you love and you see all the time can't sign a death certificate. Your physician's assistant can't sign a death certificate. It
I
has to
think
be
in
there
some places an
overseeing.
NP can, in states where they could practice autonomously, maybe, but it's not very common. But I do
Yeah,
think the
it's not
very
everywhere. And so you
no.
have to get the person overseeing them
A
to
lot of times,
agree. And
if you're in hospice, you
good.
don't even ever see the doctor. The person is
No.
in charge of of being the doctor. You see the nursing staff and all of that. But then when the person dies, it has to go to the medical director to sign that. They've never laid eyes on your loved one. They have to read
Nope.
the whole chart, you know?
Yeah. And hospice is really good. I mean, that's what they do. They do death.
Yeah.
They do
Yeah.
long-term, end of life care. They usually sign pretty darn quick.
But
If
if you
they,
die in a hospital, then they're going to argue about it because you weren't in their hospital for more than 24 hours. You never were assigned an attending doctor. You
yep.
were in the ER. They don't know you. They don't want liability for something. And then your
Yeah.
PCP goes, well, I haven't seen him in 6 years. I don't know either. And then it
Yeah.
becomes this like argument of who's even going to sign it. So yes, it's a very long process. We will never have them at the transfer when we pick up your loved one. We will never have them the day of the arrangement.
No,
You have to provide information to us for us to even move it along to the next of many
good,
steps.
just good information to know.
Yep.
But I just thought that was such a, oh my gosh, back in the day moment.
I
And
kind of,
that's
that was a
good.
thing that you would always make the intern or the apprentice do. And to be honest, I kind of liked it sometimes because it's like I just get to be out by myself for a couple hours,
Yeah.
and you'd be driving. Usually, you're in a van for the most part, or sometimes your own car, depending on the funeral home. But you just get like that break.
Yep.
And if it's a nice day outside, it's not the worst thing to have to do, but
Nope.
when it's time sensitive and stressful and you have to argue with these people to do their part of the job, but the families never get mad at the doctor. They get mad at the funeral home. They never get mad, you know
Us.
what I mean? And it's like, so you're just stressed out about it. But yeah, I used to have to do that in Chicago. I would take a limo sometimes and I would because
Bougie
I
death care,
I
death
got, I got
certificate
practice
runner.
driving them. Well, I got practice. If you're in downtown Chicago and you got to parallel park a limo, you're going to learn some stuff real quick. So guess what? I'm a great parallel parker. I am. Ask anybody. I could do it right and left. But that's why, because,
You
literally that was
practiced.
part of my job was to roll around to get those death certificates. And then you have to go to vital records and then you have to go here and there. And so, yep, it's a part of the job that doesn't exist as it used to anymore, which is a good thing for the most part. But I think some of us that lived during that time miss parts of that because again, you just
It's old school and everybody, yeah, that's crazy. Oh my goodness. Well, this was episode 2, guys.
yep.
We're getting into this. I cannot wait to dive into the next episodes and watch them. And next time we record, Ed will be monitored. We're gonna get him a babysitter, I think, from now on. He needs something. He needs a
He'll be all right. He'll be
rawhide
I think
or
we got a lot of really like interesting deaths in this season, not that we haven't in others, but it's always one of those like when we see them, we're like, oh yeah, that happened to me. You know what I
we
mean? And they're
got,
just
like how do they go? They got to keep stepping it up.
they got to, but it's like they haven't done anything yet that we haven't seen, so it's
No,
accurate.
nope. It's pretty awesome. I love like whoever sat and wrote out this list of different
Yes.
deaths to dive into, they're not ludicrous. They're not that off the wall. These are just
Kari,
things that
this is the
happen.
season where we start to see Arthur the Apprentice. We should have like an apprentice on
We will
for
have an apprentice on with those episodes.
yeah.
We will do that. Yeah, we're going to have some more guests lined up. We need to lay out this. We kind of haphazardly were like, we got to get some recorded, even though life is bananas right now.
Yeah.
Me and Faith were both like, well, we're down some funeral directors and death rate's up, and she's got a teacher out at school, a professor out, so she's teaching like double the load or triple. We're like, well, we're going to
It's
do this.
always something. Yeah. And
We're going to
yeah,
show up for you
October's,
guys. So here
yeah,
we
we're gonna
are.
keep going though. So we appreciate your patience. We just
Yeah.
we got a lot going on in our lives and we just took the summer off essentially, but we're back.
We're back. So watch for us next week and we'll keep bringing you episodes.
Okay, bye guys.
Bye.